This episode of the Hometown Holler podcast is brought to you by Down Home, North Carolina. Down Home, North Carolina is building power for working people all across our state because no matter who we are or where we come from, we all want the same basics. Strong public schools, safe and affordable homes, clean air and water, and the freedom to see a doctor when we're sick without falling into debt. Down Home is organizing to make that shared vision a reality in every corner of North Carolina. Learn more and get involved at downhomenc.org.
North Carolina State Highway Patrol.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
And welcome back to the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray. Well, hey, man.
Okay, so this is a different hypothetical. For folks who are listening, we just tried to record an intro to this episode, and it went totally off the rails because Quinn was honest, really is what happened. Quinn just told the truth, and y'all couldn't handle the truth. I couldn't handle the truth, so we had to restart. But if you want to see that, y'all. Become a patron, because I think we're going to put that up on our Patreon page, and you guys can experience what David and I just had to go through. Or what I just had. You were on Quinn's side.
Yeah, you were right. Yeah, I piled on.
But I had to go through. So the hypothetical that I wanted to pitch out this time, and I think this is a way more innocuous. I don't think you're going to be able to take this one in a direction.
Fair, and I won't.
If you let's say you meet a magician, right? And this magician is not crazy, not like David Blaine talented, but kid's birthday party talented. Pick your card, make the ball disappear. Maybe he can do the dove thing. He's Job from Arrested Development. If you just
okay.
That level of. But here's the thing: he's actually magical. It's not sleight of hand. It's not skill. He actually can conjure a dove, from his cufflinks, right, out of thin air, right. In your opinion, would such a magician be more interesting and impressive than Albert Einstein? Than an authentic human genius who doesn't have magical powers, but has brilliant once-in-a-generation intellect? What would, to you, be more interesting and compelling?
Conjuring doves from your cufflinks.
Mm-hmm.
If you had that power, I remember growing up and watching the show on Nickelodeon called Alex Mack, and she would just turn into a puddle.
Turn into a puddle of mercury?
Yeah.
And
I was like,
that was her superpower, was just puddles?
She could sneak under things.
That's cool.
And I was like, that's kind of dumb. But then I was like, if that was the power I needed or only could get, that's awesome. So, I would love to just see conjuring of any sort.
So just magic, even if it's not Harry Potter level magic.
Right, if it's just unlimited yarn from your mouth.
Cool, that's neat.
I disagree. Because if it's the same tricks that a kid's birthday party magician can do, how do I know the difference? You can tell me it's actually magic, but I don't. It all looks the same to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I guess the way you would determine is right. You're looking behind the scenes. You peek behind the curtain. You interrogate. You try and look at it. Yeah, you check out this exactly. And,
we would just take him to Penn and Teller's fool us and see if he can fool Penn and Teller, and then if he can, then.
That's true.
Yeah, I think for me the magic would actually have to do something besides be amusing before I'm fully this is cool. I'm interested.
Like flying or something.
Yeah, it would have to get you to places you couldn't otherwise go, or get you things you couldn't otherwise have.
Alex Mack is more interesting than real life Einstein, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm there on that.
The shape-shifting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, puddle being.
That was my RuneScape handle in 7th grade, was puddle being 29.
That's it would be.
So, folks, we're here today with our friend David Graham. Folks will know that longtime friends of the Holler will know that David joined us for your inaugural visit, your maiden voyage, back in June of this year, and you're back now to hopefully bring us good news about the state of the world. Right,
Ooh.
David? Right?
Yeah, of course.
Excellent.
Let me think on it for a minute.
So David is a staff writer at The Atlantic, keeps up with their daily newsletter. You have a job that is simultaneously really, really cool, and I also just couldn't hack it. I couldn't handle it. Not just because I'm not as prolific of a writer as you are, but because I'm barely hanging on to sanity as it is, and I'm not even immersed a tenth to the extent that you are with current events and breaking news and all of that. And
I may not be holding on to sanity is the secret.
right. That's it. It's like the Incredible Hulk, where it's like, how do you manage your anger? And he's like, I'm always angry.
I'm always angry.
I'm always there. So David, thank you for coming back. And we're going to be talking about, man, there's just so much to talk about, right? So since we talked last conversation, it was a lot about 2025, Project 2025.
Yep. The author of the book that we wanted to sign, which kind of felt weird, signing a book that was written on about Project 2025.
Yeah, the deconstruction of civil society. Like, but give me your autograph.
But you did it. But yeah, thanks for making the trek down. He's in North Carolina, so it's always cool to have somebody who's writing nationally come to the Holler studio, which is fun. But you've put out a bunch of pieces recently. You put, as Daniel said, you do stuff on the daily. Then you also just had a cover story. But one of the stories, you started out that every 2 years, politicians declare the most important election of our lifetimes. But as I reported on how the 2026 election could be in danger, I started to wonder if maybe that assertion was true this time. So how do you open this article with like such a, like it's a gut check, right? Like what made this election feel different for you?
So I was asked to look into basically how Trump and people around Trump could subvert 2026, what it might look like.
Just real quick, just to make sure we get your.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
who asked you to look into that? Just like the folks above.
the folks above, yeah, exactly. I don't know who exactly.
You didn't volunteer for that assignment.
I think I inadvertently volunteered for it. And I thought, to be honest, what I thought was, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about, and I think North Carolina is the way I want to talk about this. Like, if you look at North Carolina, you see all the ways you might try to steal an election. You start by changing the laws. You start implementing voter ID stuff. You reduce early voting. All these things to make it harder to vote. You do things to drive people from the polls. You gerrymander. And then after the election, you try to throw out valid votes, like we saw in the Supreme Court race. And then I started calling people about the election, and they were even more freaked out than I expected. There was just like
What kinds of folks are you talking to?
Law professors, lawyers who've worked for both parties, people who work in sort of voting rights and voting access, people who work in civil society, people who work in law enforcement and civil military relations.
It's a pretty broad cut.
Right. It's not just like a partisan hat.
Right. And I mean, some of these were people who in the past I've talked to, and they've been, talking about election stuff. They'll be like, people need to calm down.
Yeah.
We have a lot of safeguards, blah, blah, blah. All these things are, the kind of the voices of calm. And they sounded calm, but they did not seem reassuring. And it freaked me out a little bit, to be honest.
Where is I hear a squeak.
Is the squeak
Shaking. Is it me? I don't know.
Is it you? I don't know. But
Tyler, are you picking that up? Is it nothing?
Oh, I hear it, but it's not from over here.
Yeah. I think
It'll work.
Do we need to do anything about it?
no, I think it'll cut out in background noise.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're speaking into here, that's all it'll pick up.
We'll cut this part out.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that you open the article with that line, and I do think it's almost become a cliche. Yeah. Especially on from Democrats last year, it was like, this is it. This is the crossroads. This is the Rubicon. If Trump gets elected, the game is over. Mm-hmm. And I think that is such a dangerous game to play because Trump got elected, right. And then it's like, well, then now do we all just give up? Right. So,
and we joke about it too, right? Like every time we go to any type of event and there's a candidate, they're like, this is the most important.
Sure.
And you're just like, yeah, like we laugh it off. Like it's the thing you have to say.
Which is all to say that,
what you guys are saying is a hackish way for me to start.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that by starting that way, like I know that you thought about that because it's a cliche and you thought, man, like words have meaning, and do I, when I say this, I'm gonna say it because I mean it. And I guess my question is, what uniquely makes 2026 right? Like we've seen a couple things. You mentioned Justice Riggs and the attempt to throw out a bunch of votes, which kind of had mixed results there. Some votes were saved. Some votes were said, well, we'll count them this time, but you've got to go re-register. And we were kind of still in that, I think. What other things, looking, what are some things we haven't seen yet? We've seen the voter ID, we've seen the Justice Riggs thing. We have seen Border Patrol recently, which I would link to voter suppression very directly. Yep. What are some ploys that haven't played out yet that you think we might see in the coming months?
I mean, something we're seeing playing out, but I think we could see play out more is not just Border Patrol, and we've seen National Guard, but seeing way more of that. Seeing concerted attempts to interfere with voting using the military, using federal law enforcement. And I think that's something that people joke about in a sort of offhand way, but I don't think we're really prepared for what that might look like and taking it necessarily totally seriously.
Like martial law, is that?
I think that's a danger. Yeah, I think, and I don't know what that looks like. There's no such thing as martial law in the Constitution, but you can imagine an attempt to do that. And I think it's scary too because it's not just a question of sending the military to polling places, which is illegal, but it's making it really inconvenient for people to vote, intimidating people, but also inconveniencing people. And you can do a lot across the board. You can also think about the military or someone else seizing voting machines. I think that's a really scary idea.
Tell me more about that, because that's actually, you're the first person I've heard to describe a scenario where the military is actually intervening in the tabulation of votes.
Right. Because that would come from the federal level down.
Right.
Because the votes, it's all on a state level, right? We have the State Board of Elections, so it's weird to think of the federal government.
Yeah, who calls them in?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. So, the federal government has so little role by law, and Trump has been working really hard to involve the federal government in these things. So there's an executive order that came out a few months ago purporting to tell states they can't count votes received after Election Day, even if they're postmarked before Election Day, purporting to tell them not to use mail-in ballots. There's supposedly another executive order coming. They keep talking about it but not issuing it. And these aren't things that he has any power to do, but they're trying to do it. They're basically, saying these things and waiting to see if states will resist or if they'll do it, if they can use it later to say, we tried to tell you that if you did this, it would be illegal and you didn't do it, and now we're going to throw your votes out. So there's that. And then there's, attempts to seize voting machines, which is something they talked about in 2020.
What do you mean? So when you say that, I'm envisioning it's, November 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever it is. People are at the polling sites. Then all of a sudden, a Hummer pulls up,
team.
And they just come in there and they just take these machines out and go away.
I think the problem is November 7th at 11 in the morning, exactly that. So it's after the votes have been cast. It's when they're being counted, but they haven't been counted yet.
The canvass period,
exactly. It's during canvass, and so you send in, and they talked about. I'm trying to remember exactly the timeline in 2020. It was they talked about whether they could use Homeland Security to do that. And Ken Cuccinelli said they couldn't do that. And so then they went to the Pentagon, and the Pentagon said they couldn't do that. But they looked at all these ways they might be able to try to seize the machines. And then who's going to believe the count after they've been taken by the federal government? And how do you ever get a clear count? I think that's really scary. And I think, the sort of the stuff we saw in 2020 of, trying to get local officials to just throw out votes or declare a different winner, all of that stuff
have kind of ghost delegations of representatives, going to cast different, they're fake electors or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what repercussions did Trump face for calling local officials up and telling them to find him votes?
Well, he got reelected.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That was the consequence, right?
So the lesson I would take from that is I should keep doing that if I were him.
Yeah. I was in Washington recently with Kate Barr.
Yeah, that's right.
Friend of the show, friend of the Holler. And we saw the National Archive, saw the Magna Carta, which was super cool. And I had never seen the National Archive. So to go in there and see, after teaching about all these documents and reading them, they're real things, right? And it was like a quasi-spiritual experience for me. And we started having a conversation about, I think it's so important to remember that we've had a turbulent history as a nation. I mean, we've been through a civil war, right? That killed a percentage of the population. I mean, it was the most bloody conflict in our nation's history. You combine all the other wars, and you're still not touching what we had with the Civil War. But all that being said, right? We are in a period that, to me, in many ways, feels like the 1850s. And I do not mean to imply that we're about to have a sectional dispute that results in a North versus South or an East versus, but just in terms of the division and the polarization. And what you're describing to me, those events, the sequence of events that election manipulation, that is kind of the missing link between where we are today and me saying, well, we're headed for something crazy, and the actual craziness. That's on the other side of that, those election shenanigans. And I'm curious to know your thought, because I was talking to Kate about this. What do you think is likely to happen if not even an election is overturned, right? If next November there is just a significant amount of doubt on the validity of elections in North Carolina and other states across the country, how do you see that playing out in our daily lives?
Be our oracle, David.
Oh man.
Again, that's why not what's going, but what's likely to happen.
Yeah, I think we already see rising doubt about election results, and some of that is normal. The people who support the losing party always lose a little bit of faith, but not at the numbers we're seeing, and not at the scale we're seeing, and not encouraged by elected office holders.
The highest in the land.
Right. But the flip side of that is if Trump were to rig the election in some way, you will have Democrats saying that he rigged the election, and they might be right. And so it gets to a point where you're saying things that sound dangerous and also are true, and where people can't trust the election results. You could imagine a House of Representatives that most people viewed as illegitimate, making laws or not making laws or not doing any, not doing oversight, not doing anything to restrain the president. Look. We have seen lots of critiques of Trump and the way he's behaving, but it is a fact that he was elected, he won a majority, he is the legitimate president. But if he's working with an illegitimate House and all these things are going, it calls the whole enterprise into question, the legitimacy of all of it, and that's scary. Then there's no shared basis for.
Do you see us maybe ending up is there an example? I mean, people toss around, we're 1930s Germany, or we're 1920s Italy, or we're 1930s Spain. I hear all these comparisons to things that have come before us, and I'm curious. Do you think any of these are we going to be something totally new, or is there something you can point to and be like, that's we're going to be like 2012 Russia? That's the flavor we're picking. Yeah.
I think Hungary is a good one. I think Italy is a good one under Berlusconi too, where you have a wealthy playboy who's
I had never
sort
thought
of a
about that.
buffoon.
For those that don't know that time frame, what is that time frame?
So this is like 2000s.
So recent.
Yeah,
so for
recent.
The listener,
And just nobody. The government was completely ineffective. The economy was stagnant. Nobody trusted the government. It was just like it's just like a kind of nihilistic society.
And he was totally like the Italian Trump.
Yeah,
just kind of playboy energy, like to troll people.
Kind of orange.
Yeah. Orange and shiny.
Yeah.
And
widespread corruption.
For sure.
Using the government to enrich himself and his family.
Bunga bunga.
Bunga bunga.
Which is, I guess that was his Epstein, in some way.
Yes.
Well, with that too, you've mentioned in a couple of your articles that authoritarians love elections.
Right.
And why do authoritarians love elections?
That seems so counterintuitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is one of the things that I thought was interesting. I started calling people and I'm guessing a lot of, you've probably heard this, probably people listening have heard, they're like, well, if we have elections in 2026 sort of thing. And everyone I called it, we'll have elections in 2026. They wouldn't be trying to gerrymander Texas at the time or Indiana or Missouri if they didn't intend to have elections.
Sure.
But elections are really important. First of all, because canceling elections looks really bad. That makes you look like an old school dictator. But having an election and just having it unfair, gives you the veneer of legitimacy without any actual legitimacy. It makes it seem like you've done something. It makes you seem like an actual popular leader, which is why you see elections in Turkey, you see elections in Hungary, you see elections in Russia. A dictator wants to have that to give them
a fig leaf kind of
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something to lean back on, right? Just be like, see, the people did elect me.
Right.
They did do this. Where would you say we are now as the U.S. government? Because you've talked a lot about competitive authoritarianism and stuff. Are we like a full?
What does that mean? That's a relatively new term for me.
Yeah.
Competitive authoritarianism.
It's only something I've learned in the last year, and it's so. Two political scientists came up with this idea, I believe, in the early 2000s.
Let me check a camera real quick. I just heard a camera beep.
We'll start that from the top with competitive.
Well, you guys are really, really willing to admit the stuff you don't know today. Yeah.
Did you see this clip of Mamdani on Chris Hayes? Hayes was like, blah, blah, blah. New York is really sui generis, blah, blah, blah. And Mamdani was like, wait a second, what does that term mean? And it's not, he claimed he didn't know what it meant, and I suspect he was sort of playing a little bit, but it was like a let's speak real English sort of thing, which I thought was really interesting.
I mean, in the same way that I'll go to my grave convinced that George W. Bush never didn't say nuclear naturally. That was
he had to learn to do that.
Yeah. He wanted to sound stupider.
Yeah. Wanted to sound stupider.
He wanted to sound more common man.
I mean, I think that's part of what we're also trying to do too. Like, we could get really politico, but
the guy went to
Yale.
Yeah. So there's no way that he
development admin legacy, But yes, you're right.
So you've talked about competitive authoritarianism and stuff, and I'm just wondering, where is the United States government right now? But before we get into that, like, what is competitive authoritarianism?
Yeah, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, this is this term I've just learned in the last year, and I have found it really helpful for thinking about where we are as a country. Two political scientists came up with this idea, I believe, in the early 2000s, looking at the sort of post-Cold War world and looking at the rise of these people who were running in authoritarian ways, governing in authoritarian ways, but keeping these democratic institutions in some form, so having elections. And just finding ways to make it very hard for the opposition to win. So it's a system basically where there is an opposition party. They're legal. There are elections. They might even win sometimes, but for the most part, they're going to lose. And you have a media establishment that is stacked against the opposition. You have some prosecutions of opposition figures. You kind of crack down on the civil society institutions, all these things just to make it really hard for anyone else to win. And I think you see that everywhere. So I called Stephen Levitsky, who's a Harvard professor, who was one of the guys who came up with this. And even before we could start talking about elections, he starts going on, talking about pressure against CBS News and against ABC as perfect examples of the kinds of things you see in competitive authoritarian systems. You're making the media less likely to report fairly or afraid to report fairly. Another thing is that major media companies are major vendors for ads in an election. So maybe they wouldn't want to accept ads for Democrats if that might cause them a problem. You see prosecutions of people like Letitia James or Adam Schiff or James Comey. You don't have to prosecute every opposition, figure or candidate. You just have to make make have a few kind of show trials.
Right. You don't even have to win those cases.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You just have to have people think that, if I speak up, they'll
scare them.
You want to scare them. It's going to cost me a lot of money and a lot of hassle to win this kind of case. And James Comey might be willing to do that, but do I want to do that? Do I want to write a big check to the Democratic Party if it might bring unwanted attention to me? Or would I rather just sit this election out? So there's all these ways that you just, even before you get to elections, before you talk about election systems, you're making it hard for anyone to really beat your party.
Do you think we are now, if you had to say the United States of America's government right now, are we a fully democratic republic? Are we a hybrid of this authoritarianism and democracy? Or are we really just slipping that slope, getting closer to that competitive authoritarianism?
I think we're on the slope, and I think it's really hard to see in it where we are. We don't have a functional Congress as a check on the president, so that's one bad thing. But where are the courts? I don't know. I feel like every individual court decision tells us a little bit more, but I don't quite know how much we can rely on courts, and I think that's an important question.
I also think federalism plays into it too, because depending on where you are in the country, like being in Massachusetts, I would feel a lot more persuaded that I was in a democratic republic.
Right.
I was talking to a friend. This is back in April.
That makes sense.
But I was talking to a friend who's a public. He was actually my high school teacher, and now he's up in Massachusetts doing the Lord's work up there. And he was saying that we were told that if ICE shows up, the state's got our back.
Wow.
Massachusetts is standing on business, and you go to a place like Arkansas, or you go to, I mean, here in North Carolina, where we have Democratic leadership in theory, Democratic governor, attorney general,
but being forced to use some right-wing rhetoric.
Choosing.
Force is a little different, I guess.
I mean,
You're right.
making calculated political decisions, which personally I do not think are going to pay off at all.
Right. Well, I mean, we definitely saw him just backlash on
I'm just
them.
curious. I mean, did you see the statements from Governor Stein, or
I did.
the lack of statements from other people? What were your thoughts?
I thought it was really interesting to see Stein trying to walk a line there on telling people to be peaceful.
And for folks who are, maybe need context, this is before and during the incursion of Border Patrol and ICE into North Carolina, and we're talking about Governor Josh Stein's communications on that topic.
Yeah, he said, be peaceful. We abide the law in North Carolina, but if you see anybody doing anything inappropriate, record it, which got huge reaction from Greg Bovino, the CBP guy,
inciting violence.
Accusing them of inciting violence. And I talked to Leonardo Moore, the mayor of Durham, in the
Leonardo Williams.
Leonardo. I have an old friend named
That's
Leonardo
for you,
Moore.
Leo.
I've done that twice now. So I talked to Leo Williams on Wednesday, I guess. And he also, I think there's this real sense among local Democratic leaders that the federal government is trying to provoke them and is trying to get them to do something. And they're really worried about that baiting, and they're trying to, Leo says, I want to encourage people. I want people to feel safe, but I also don't want to give Trump the sort of the confrontation he wants. And I think they're really trying to figure out how to walk that line.
Yeah, it's really wild. When ICE did come in here, they targeted the counties that didn't take up 287G, which I don't think is a coincidence.
Well, they also happen to be. What I found interesting was they were all in the most reliably Democratic precincts and communities, right? Like we have I would imagine, I don't work in immigrations customs enforcement, but I would imagine if your true goal was public safety, if your true goal was to prosecute people who have entered the country without legal documentation, your operation would be more spread out geographically across the state. But it was very specific to places that, do not vote in this administration's interests.
Right.
I wanted to go a step back, going still back to Governor Stein's messaging to it. When it first happened, I saw what he was trying to do, right? Like I think we all before they came in.
Yeah.
And it kind of frustrated me. Like to me, it felt a little milquetoast. It felt a little using the language, right? Saying target, like ICE is going to come in here and they're targeting criminals, like using the language that we're seeing from the federal level down. And I was like, man, like I'm not a big fan.
We disagreed on this one because I think preemptively, I think it was the right move for him to set it up that way, in the hopes that he could then, and that he would then, knowing that was not what was going to happen, be able to say, you fucked up. You broke. We trusted you, and you broke that trust.
I guess then. So now on hindsight,
he teed himself up, I think, for good optics.
But that drive just didn't hit. But also, I think it goes back to your point, Daniel, about
and the person who hit it instead was Tom Tillis.
Correct.
Right.
Which is wild.
Which is
crazy.
Wild.
So Tom, if you're listening to this, we would love to have you on the show.
Tell us about that.
Please.
Why is Tom the winner here?
What do you mean?
In the sense of
why did he do that?
Well, for folks
That
who maybe missed this.
Oh yeah, so
did
Tillis
he do?
on Thursday was saying, I want a list of everyone who was arrested. I want to know what they were charged with. I want to know how long they were held. I want to know if they're still being held and where. And I want to know if there was any damage to property.
Which we know there was.
What have they been compensated for?
Right.
That?
How much was that?
And these are basic questions.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. In the case, I'm pushing. I want to get back to the question, but I think it's interesting. They came into Charlotte. They made a big announcement about hundreds of arrests in Charlotte. When they came to the Triangle, though, they did. There was the rumor was they were going to go to Raleigh. They still, to my knowledge, haven't said anything about Operation in Durham. They didn't answer my questions. They haven't made a public statement. They haven't said how many people they arrested or for what. So there's really different approaches going on in different places.
Yeah, oh man, I had a question, and then you said something that kind of diverted me.
Tillis.
Yeah, well, Tillis, you know, okay, so I guess a question. Yes, thank you.
Why would an outgoing
exactly.
senator who, you know, I guess lame duck, say something like this? And he still has power, right? Until 26, he still has some influence, and
arguably more than Josh Stein.
Sure, right? And somebody who was the Speaker of the House in North Carolina, he's now our state senator. He's pretty much, I think a lot of people could say he's been rubber stamping a lot of stuff, and now all of a sudden, it feels like he's bucking the system. You know, I mean, we're kind of seeing it in MTG as well. But in Tillis, our senator, why would he feel compelled to say this unless he honestly believes it? And why would you think our governor wouldn't be saying things like this?
I mean, on the Tillis side, I think this stuff is unpopular. People don't want a big dragnet. They look at the polling data. People want criminals arrested, but they don't want these huge operations. They don't want CBP going into churches and going into country clubs, and it's upsetting people in Charlotte, I think, and it's a good politician impulse to respond to that and demand something as in the way that Tillis has.
But for what? He's not a politician anymore.
Well, he's still a politician,
and we
it's
have
still
a governor's
constituent
race
services.
in 20. I mean, if I'm Tom Tillis, I'm looking at 2028, right? Like, I don't know who's going to challenge Josh Stein, but I think Tillis, he would be competitive in that primary, and this would be a feather in his cap that he could deliver.
I didn't even think of that, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, for real. I mean, to come to people and say, look, when ICE was invading,
right,
I was the guy searching for accountability.
I mean, Tillis, I don't know. I don't know how to read a lot of Tillis's moves recently.
I don't think he knows either.
Or he's pushed back on Trump. But I wonder if a little bit of it is legacy maintenance. He wants to show that there were ways in which he was a conservative, but when Trump was really overreaching, he was willing to say so. I think you see a lot of the stuff going on, and you don't want to have been a rubber stamp for all of that.
Yeah. So I remember what I was going to say, and it leads to a question about resistance. I think we saw a lot of really effective resistance in North Carolina with people coming together, whistles, alerting. Just information got out, and it got out fast and it went far, which was awesome. One thing we didn't see in North Carolina that I thought was really ingenious in other places was the satire and the humor, and the inflatable costumes. Like, right. I'm a frog hanging out by the ICE detention center. I think that is awesome because there's. I mean, I think protesting is all about optics. It's all about the person sitting at home flipping through TV and what they think about you and what they don't think about you. And it's really hard to think of somebody as a hardened communist, agitator, Bolshevik when they're dressed like Foghorn Leghorn, right?
Are you talking about Milo?
I am. Shout out to our very own Foghorn Leghorn. Thank you very much. And we didn't see that here. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on the most effective forms of resistance to the tyranny that we are experiencing?
I think part of what I witnessed most closely was in Durham. And there, I think it happened so fast that people had no time to even get to the point of satire.
Yeah. I mean, it was was it even 2 days? I mean,
it wasn't even 2 days. Yeah. No. I mean, it was like Tuesday morning, I think, was the first conversation, first hints that something was going on. Mm-hmm. And the last confirmed spottings were sometime Tuesday afternoon or evening.
Yeah, wow.
So they swept in and they swept out real fast. And it was interesting to see how fast people were, Sambor NC was a huge hub for a lot of these things, and it brought people out. And then people were they were self-organizing, they were going out, they were putting together patrols. There were signal groups popping up.
Do you think that helps prevent what ICE is trying to do, or just gum up the situation? Because I think so often people feel like, what can we do? Yeah. And feel so helpless.
You're asking, is it theater, or is it actually making a difference?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think both. Okay. I mean, I think two things. One is, so I was got on the signal chat and I was driving all over town trying to, these places where people had thought they'd seen CBP or thought they'd seen someone. And everywhere I went, like, I was like, oh, you just missed them. They were here. We thought they were here. Like, and I think some of those places there were, and some of the places they, it was just a false alarm. But, in some of those cases, I suspect that they don't want to operate with a lot of visibility. They don't want to be taped. We know they don't like that. They've reacted really poorly to it in other places. They were arresting people for it in Charlotte, among other things. So I think that does discourage. I also think it's a really important organizing tool. And like people I was seeing out, they were people who were they're the folks who I see at every protest who are really veteran and they know the drill. But there were people who were just ordinary people who were upset and were like, I've got to do something. I've got to get out there. I've got to do something to like help my neighbors and to stand up against this. And I think building those kinds of muscles is probably really effective for resistance. All those networks are going to, those signal chats literally, but also just those kind of networks and those muscles are going to remain if they come back, and they're going to remain for future organizing.
Yeah, when was the last time we had something even like remotely like this in North Carolina? I mean, I don't know that I
mean, I guess in Alamance County, right, 2010-ish is when our Alamance sheriff started rounding up people and
the 287G or whatever.
Well, I don't think it had passed yet, but he was charged or racially profiling people.
The DOJ came in, the Obama DOJ came in and were scrutinizing.
But nothing to this.
As somebody who has one of those veterans that you see at a lot of protests, I went to Raleigh last Sunday, the day after the ICE came into Charlotte, and I have to admit that out of 15 protests over the summer this year, I saw more young people than I had seen in a North Carolina protest yet. Period. I was absolutely blown away by the number of under 30. I mean,
because you've been to a lot of the No Kings protests too, right? So it was a different.
Go into everything, but you tend to see a certain demographic.
Sure,
we protesters tend to skew older. They tend to. This was something completely different.
I wonder why that is.
Because they were here in North Carolina.
I also think, there's so many. Durham Public Schools had like a 20% absence rate. Charlotte was about that too. I didn't see the final numbers in Raleigh, but they were high or in Wake County, but they were high as well. I think it's really present for a lot of younger people because they have classmates who are not authorized immigrants, or maybe simply they are afraid, or their parents are afraid, because there's lots of arrests of people who are citizens, much less documented. So I think it is really present for them in a way that, look, this is the same debate we had after 2024, but like it's one thing to talk about democracy in an abstract way, but then you see what a lack of rule of law looks like right there.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about ICE here in North Carolina, and I think this goes back to your overarching cover story with Donald Trump's plan to subvert the midterms. But you also kind of did a subsection of that in one of the dailies, saying that North Carolina is like the canary in the coal mine with it. How does this play into all of that? Was there something unique about North Carolina with this ICE, or is there more to the whole story?
I just think that it's the dynamics. This state is just so representative of so many things in the country. It's it's very closely divided politically.
Yeah.
It has a minoritarian legislature.
Because Democrats got what, like 60% of the votes overall?
I have to look at the numbers, but Democrats won more of the votes for the, I believe, in both the state house and state senate, and are almost a super minority. I think that the racial dynamics here are fairly representative. Growing Hispanic population, and we've had an enduring Republican legislature here that has pushed through a lot of changes in the law and has made it a really effective laboratory for trying out a lot of things that have then gone national.
Yeah, it feels like for folks that are of voting age, that's been voting the last 3 elections or so, it feels like we've had this Republican-led legislature for years, and it's just been forever. But honestly, it's only been like 15 years, right? So less than 4 presidential elections. It has happened so fast about how far we've suppressed. I mean, even switching over to the Board of Elections, right?
Yeah.
To taking it from the governor to the auditor.
No, it does, because you're right. Because I mean, you're absolutely right. Republicans have been in control since 2010, roughly, and it does feel a little bit. It's like bankruptcies, right? Really slowly and then all at once. It does feel like it's been kind of a slow burn. And then in the past, I would say 2023, the thing that I would maybe trace, like, things were always tenuous, but when Democrats lost a majority on the Supreme Court and the new majority overturned a decision they'd already made with regard to gerrymandering, that to me feels like a very pivotal moment, a watershed moment where there was
spinal tapped it and turned it to 11.
Right, exactly. And we've been snowballing quickly ever since.
Really good ProPublica piece, if people haven't read it, by Doug
Newby?
Block Clark about Paul Newby.
yeah.
Really, really good and deep piece. Also featuring the North Carolina GOP threatening ProPublica if they didn't drop the story, which didn't work. I mean, I think, and the Board of Elections is a great example too, because I mean, I thought the Riggs race needed more attention than it got both locally and nationally as a sort of important moment. But after that was resolved, the way that the Board of Elections was taken over, that nonpartisan executive director with national status was fired and replaced by a Republican operative.
We talked to her. Go listen to that episode. It was a good chat.
Bringing in Dallas Woodhouse, all these things. I mean, that stuff felt sort of anticlimactic, and they sort of managed to get it in without much attention.
It was so quiet. Once
the Supreme Court race was over, and I don't think people have necessarily recognized how significant that would be. I mean, I think about all the ways
they don't know how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Board of Elections has been so influential in so many of these races in ways big and small, and having that in different hands is going to make a big difference.
And I mean, and for the listeners, one difference we just saw last week, right? So now each county has a Board of Elections, and they tally up the votes, and the Board of Elections is made up of 5 members, and normally they all were appointed by the governor. The governor says, okay, they're on there. And the majority party, that would be the 3, would be the governor's party. But now since it's switched to the auditor, which is now a Republican, it is the other way around. The majority is Republicans. So if you're in a deep blue county, like Guilford County, for instance, they get to decide the elections. When's early election? Where are polling sites? Where are how long is early elections? And we just saw them take away early voting sites from an HBCU, an A&T, and from UNCG. So suppressing a vote racially and suppressing a vote, I guess like ageism, right? Like they don't want the collegers.
I mean, and I think one counter to this whole thing is, well, under the governor, you still had a similar situation where you had red counties that maybe had
sure.
I mean, here in Alamance County, we had a Democrat heading our Board of Elections, but I think that comparison just simply doesn't hold up, because what you see is in places, in red counties that have Democratic officials on the Board of Elections, and a majority leading, they're not trying to make it harder to vote. Right.
That's the point.
That's
right
the point,
there.
right?
They're not making it harder.
Right. If frankly, I wouldn't care who was appointing the Board of Elections officials if they were not seizing every opportunity to throw obstacles between people and the ballot, and that's what's really concerning.
Did either one of y'all see their reasoning recently in Guilford? I don't know the reasoning. I'm asking you guys because it doesn't make, like, why would you take away early voting sites for people? Like, is it money? Are they saying we don't have enough?
I have
money?
heard that in other counties that it's just been cut cost, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, a consistent talking point you hear on these voter suppression things is voting is really important, and if it matters to you, you will find a way to do it. We don't need to make it too easy for people.
Man,
People
should
have to
fuck
put
off
work.
on that. I mean, that's stupid. And somebody did say that in this last one in Guilford. One of the board members said if they wanted to vote, they could just take the day off and vote. Man, like, eat a bag of dicks. I mean, that makes me so mad. Excuse my language, but like, how privileged can you be to say that type of stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the underlying philosophy is that it is not necessarily better for more people to vote.
Right. And that's fundamentally,
And that's, you know, I don't think that's all that, even all, you know, they don't say it that way, but it's not even all that hidden. I think people should understand that is the philosophy behind a lot of these changes.
Yeah, I wish we could get down to like this intellectual bedrock with, you know, like a Phil Berger or a Destin Hall, and because really, it doesn't come down to fiscal stewardship of do we fund public schools or vouchers. Like what it comes down to is who deserves to be educated, who deserves to have access to the ballot box. Like it really does come down to those fundamental questions, not of like how do we allocate resources, but ultimately, do you or do you not believe that minority rule is a good thing?
Right.
And by minority rule, I don't mean racial minority. I mean like what we have here, right? Which is there's a Senate, a MAGA supermajority in the North Carolina Senate that is not representative of the population they purport to serve. And some people would say that's a good thing.
That's Democrats' fault because they're too concentrated in cities.
Right. That's on them, right? And I mean, look, and I think there is a situation where Democrats get 51. I do think that there is a situation in which Democrats get 52% of the vote and don't hold the House.
Sure.
You know, so that argument of like, well, Democrats got more votes. There are situations where Democrats will get more votes and won't have a majority, but like, God, look, I mean, just
right. When you're looking at 51, 52, that's one thing. You're never going to have a perfect election system.
Right.
The question is how consistently and how broadly, and that is what you see looking at our legislature.
Precisely. We're coming up on time. Yeah, you were gonna.
Yeah, we're coming up on time. But there's a couple things. I forget the line that you said. I think it was like Hannah Fried. You might have quoted her. What was it? If you're not paying attention,
if you're not scared, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
I think that means that people don't see. Well, I guess I'd say this: there are so many ways that you can mess with the election system, and that to me is one of the scariest things. You might be paying attention to one or two of these things, but there are all these avenues, and they don't all have to work. Only a few of them have to work, potentially, and you can make a real difference. And so people need to be paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to the rules where they are locally, paying attention to the federal government trying to seize power on these things, paying attention to the FCC trying to bully media companies into favorable coverage. I mean, all of these things, there's all of these ways in which the system is at risk. And I can imagine an election in 2026, which is, people try to mess with it, but it's fundamentally fair. And the result represents the will of the people. And I can imagine a result that really doesn't. And I think that's scary, not just because elections should represent what the voters want, but also because 2 years of a president who is not checked by the legislature or the courts, or 4 years total, 2 more years of a president unchecked by the legislature or the courts, leaves us in a really, I think, tenuous place as a country. And I mean, this gets back to your question about the most important election ever. Like, then you have another, there's another election in 2028. We assume that election goes forward because dictators love elections. But like, what is left by 2028 if the 2026 election is not fair? What is left of the election system, and also what is left of the broader democratic structure of our government?
And that's why we have to have you back.
Yeah, because we definitely
more
we
good
need
news.
it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But what are people supposed to? So okay, I start paying attention because I read the Daily Atlantic newsletter by David Graham, and he told me I need to start paying attention. I start paying attention, and all it's doing is giving me more hemorrhoids and more aneurysms, and I'm freaking out. What are you seeing? Because like you said during when ICE came to Durham, you were crisscrossing the county trying to see what can people do that are paying attention other than just read it and not freak out. What are you seeing folks do?
I mean, I think seeing people get involved is really important. So many of these strategies, whether they're redrawing districts or voter suppression, rely on the idea that people are going to be discouraged and they're not going to vote and they're not going to get involved, and they're going to check out of it. So not doing that is really important. I mean, this is so obvious, but voting, and not just voting, but voting early if you can, making sure your ballot gets postmarked in time if you're mailing it, doing all those little things, and then paying attention to what's happening and speaking out against it and being involved in local groups on that. Because elections are local. Like, all of these things are run at the state and local level. As long as we don't let the federal government take that away. And so people should be doing that. And people should be working at, if you can do it, like work, volunteer for elections, all those things, work for a campaign, work for a nonprofit organization on these things. Just like that like little level of paying attention, I think it makes it much harder to steal an election.
Has the current climate made your job harder? Have you?
Do you find yourself self-censoring as a journalist?
No, I mean, I don't find myself self-censoring. I feel very lucky to work at a place that has been very clear that our job is to keep reporting the news as we see it, regardless of who it pisses off on either side. Like we shouldn't be twisting our coverage in any way. But not every organization. I mean, look at what is happening at CBS News. I'm sure people there don't feel as free to report in the way they have.
Quiet piggy.
I think it's harder to get people to talk. I called people on this election subversion story who were like, "Yeah, I'm happy to talk. I'd rather not talk on the record."
Oh wow.
And there's always some of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, in some cases, like, why?
But this topic seems so innocuous, right?
It was
like it's not.
What what do I have to gain from that? Like this is gonna bring me attention that I don't need, and I'm not sure I have much to gain. So I'll talk to you, but like I don't need to be involved in the story. And I don't mind that, but I think that's symptomatic of a broader feeling among a lot of people, and that's scary.
David, it is. So before we end this show, because we're about to end the show, Daniel, I need to talk to David because he's a fellow deadhead.
Yes, yeah.
And
I do got to bounce relatively soon though because we got that.
This will only take a couple hours. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay,
it's
cool.
Kind
So
of
as long as we're out here by midnight.
Like one of their songs. But last time we came, we found out that David likes the Grateful Dead. Grew up listening.
And your favorite ice cream is fish food.
That's right.
Ben and Jerry's, not Cherry Garcia, as fate would have it.
It's just a taste thing, not a musical thing.
This is a hot take for a deadhead. So recently, the dead community we have lost Donna Jean. She has passed away, and if you've listened to the Grateful Dead, you know who Donna is. What is your take on Donna?
My family group chat was lighting up with Donna discussion. Donna's a strong spice. I wouldn't want
She was
too
a backup
much of it.
singer for Elvis.
Yeah, that's right. I think. I mean, my take was, well, sure, Donna in the studio is going to be a lot more restrained than Donna live. And my dad was like, listen to this show. She sounds really great on. Okay, looks like Rain is fantastic on this one. So I'm pro Donna. I'm pro Donna, but I'm aware. Like any family member, I love her, but I'm aware of her faults.
Man, that is a good take. My dad was telling me, and Milo, correct me if this is a true story or not, but he was saying that sometimes the Dead sound crew they didn't like her because she was married to the keyboard player at the time, and kind of like a Yoko style at points, and that she was a studio singer, and that they would like turn off her monitors so she couldn't hear stuff, and so she would just scream as loud as she could and make these wailing cat noises.
So Yoko,
that would explain
totally,
a lot.
Very much in the mold of you've seen that. I think it's the Mike Douglas show where Yoko's just like screaming into the microphone, and John Lennon's playing with Chuck Berry,
and he's like, stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's like John Lennon's like meeting. I think Bill Burr has a bit on this. Where it's like John Lennon meets his idol Chuck Berry, and they get to play Memphis, Tennessee, and they're just jamming. They're having a great time, and you can see that that John is just this is a big deal in his life, and he's a Beatle, right? So this is a big deal. And Yoko goes up to the mic and like grabs it with both hands and just starts screaming. And
Donna didn't do that.
But what's funny is like you could like Chuck Berry has a split-second reaction where he like looks at John and is like, man, I don't know how you do this. Like, oh man, it's priceless.
Maybe Donna was trying to wake Keith up.
Maybe. But thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I always enjoy you coming down, and I like this regularness of it. This is the second to last episode of this season for the Holler. You did this last season for us too, so I think every season David should come in and just give us hopeful information.
It's the best way to get bad news.
Well, if you haven't followed,
that's
David,
a really good tagline. I need to. Yeah,
it's like is it Modest Mouse? It's good news for people who love bad news. Yeah.
But yeah, Daniel, I think that's it. Other than if they haven't subscribed to us on Patreon, yeah, definitely do that, and make sure you follow The Atlantic on the daily because David puts out some very good stuff, and when he gets a cover story, it's also a longer, in-depth study of David Graham's mind.
But do check out the Patreon so you can hear how we started this episode and understand why we chose to restart the episode.
Yes, that's a good one.
All right, well, on that note,
bye, Daniel's mom.
Oh my God.
That was good.
Thanks again to Down Home North Carolina for making this episode possible. Learn more about their work and get involved at downhomenc.org.